Recording in progress. Yeah, feel free that the webinar will go onto my YouTube channel. Really, I'm not going to be sending it out to social media. You'll be blitzing the whole world with social media. So, welcome everyone. Thank you very much for coming along. It's a pleasure to see so many of you on screen and actually in our presence from all around the country and some parts of the globe, which is great. Thanks very much for attending. I'm going to be your host, and I'm Steve Saunders, a business and performance coach with Action Coach. There's a couple of bits about me. There's me and my daughters. I've got 3 daughters and a lovely wife, and I should be called Arkwright. This is me, the little fella on the left here. But I was born above the grocery store in West London, hence a bit of a Chelsea connection. Luckily I'm called Steve, not Arkwright or Granville. If anyone knows the Open All Hours show, you'll get the joke. If you don't know the show, the joke's just flown over your head. So apologies. There's me with some of my clients having a bit of fun in a Porsche garage on a Chamber of Commerce event in a good few years back now. As I say, I'm going to be your host, and I've just got one little slide really. I wanted to make sure that you focus on things that we can control. There's an awful lot happening in the world at the moment, as always, and it's important that we think about what we can do. So we can't adjust the wind, but we can adjust our sails and change our direction accordingly and do some more things that we need to be doing within our business. Can you speak to more business owners or more consumers? For sure, there'll be ways that you can do that. So think about focusing on what you can do rather than what you can't do. So I just wanted to mention that before we move on. So I'm going to ask Bucky to talk to us now about JGB. So Bucky George, so I'll hand over to you, Bucky, for now. If you can give us a little bit of a taster on JJB accountants and why you're a little bit different.
Okay, thank you. Can you guys hear me? I can't see myself. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, far away.
Great. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you everyone for honouring our invitation today. I'm just here to give you a little brief about JGB, what we're all about. We are a one-stop accounting firm offering services that provides convenience and efficiency to all our clients. And services we offer are tax planning, wealth management, mortgage solution, legal and business coaching, as Steve has mentioned to you earlier on today. Most of our clients appreciate this because we have all our services under one umbrella, and that's how we try to differentiate ourselves from other competitors. But the webinar today is about building back and giving back. And we at JGB, we're passionate about giving back to the community and also the environment in which we live in. But Steve is here to give us more in details about all this. Please refer to our website for further information about JGB accounts. Thank you for your time and enjoy the rest of the program. Thank you.
Oh, lovely. Thanks, Bucky. That was great. And I'd like to introduce Steve for you, really. So a little bit about Steve. Steve grew his consulting business from a spare bedroom, presumably in Watford, to a team of from himself to a team of 40 people, and then sold it when he reached his 50th birthday. Along the way, Steve's written the 7-part BBC TV series, Easy Money, and 7 business books. And he was named UK Entrepreneur of the Year by a leading business magazine. So I know you're keen to hear Steve, so I'm going to hand over to Steve and we'll take it away, Steve. Thank you very much.
From one Steve to another. Steve, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you very much. So if you can spotlight me, Steve, that will be great, because it just means that everybody has to look at me. Not that I'm a narcissist or anything, but it actually it makes it easier for everybody if there's one point of focus. Actually, it wasn't a spare bedroom that I started the business from. We didn't have a spare bedroom. Our first daughter had just been born, and I had started my business from inside her nursery. We had a bookcase on the wall, and I built a little piece of wood into it that hinged down during the day, made a sort of, I don't know, a 2-foot by 2-foot desk, which I had to hinge away when we changed the baby's nappy and things. And yeah, my first business started there. And yeah, I sold it when I reached my 50th birthday. And in fact, today is my 61st birthday. So that was 11 years ago as it happened. And over those years, I'd spent you know, that entire career, my background was I did 2 degrees in economics. I qualified as an accountant, worked as head of finance for 140 million division of Kodak, set up my own accounting business, sold that, and then set up my consulting business. And I guess over that time, I've used my analytical skills, I've used my rational thinking skills as an accountant, as an economist, coupled with our humanity that we all share, you know, those values and that what we stand for and what we believe in, always trying to look for and to understand what works. Now, back in the old days, I was helping businesses understand more clearly their business models, understanding the profit levers in their businesses. In fact, 2 of my 7 books, and I'm showing them for a reason because I'd love to give them to everybody. One was called Stress Proof Your Business and Your Life, and the other was called How to Build a Better Business and Make More Money. And those books look at some of the key things we can do to make our businesses more successful, to understand the underlying business mechanisms, the underlying systems, and to tweak and improve each of those systems so that we get slightly more leads, so that we get slightly better conversion rate, so that we get slightly higher referral rates, so that we're able to charge slightly higher prices, and so on and so forth. The cumulative effect of all those little changes can be quite profound. Now, the good news is that, you know, those 2 books that I just showed you were the product of 20 or 30 years of studying what works, and I would love to give them to everybody today, and I'll do so at the end of the session in digital form, so we don't have to cut down any trees, and you don't have to give me your address. I can just email them to you and so on. Those are really, in many senses, timeless insights into what works. But I want to bring today's session bang up to the minute and focus on the stuff that really is working and is really particularly relevant and new today. So I'll give you all of that stuff about what's worked before, what's always worked, what will work going forward to tackle these global problems that we're facing, economic problems for sure, on the edge of a recession. I certainly believe so. Certainly economic challenges ahead of us. You know, inflation, belt tightening, a lot of anxiety, a lot of concern, a lot of fear even. But actually, there are even bigger issues facing us, aren't there? There's global warming, there's war in Ukraine, there's global poverty, there's so much more than just the economics, and the economics are pretty scary enough. And so what I'm going to suggest that we focus on is the stuff that's even more important, the stuff that's even more topical, the stuff that's even more relevant to today. I'll give you all of that stuff that's relevant in a timeless fashion around those 2 books. But I want to really use our time today to focus on the stuff that's really working today, that's more relevant today than it has ever been. And to prove that, and because, you know, JJB are accountants and I'm an accountant, let's look at one of the most recent and largest bits of research published by one of the world's most respected and largest accounting organizations, Deloitte. Back a few months ago, middle of 2021, so just under a year ago now, Deloitte published a major piece of work which they called the Purpose Premium. There's a substantial report. You can download the whole thing for free, and I would encourage you to do so for sure. But what I'm going to share with you are some of the key findings. They produced an infographic that summarized the key findings, and this is that infographic. So you should now be able to see my screen. This is their 1-page summary of this huge report. Now, they called the report the Purpose Premium because what they wanted to look at was the payback, the premium as they called it, the return on investment that we get when we put purpose at the core of our business. When we are not just running a business in order to make money, but we are running a business for a higher purpose, a social purpose, a contributing in some way to making the world a better place. Whether that's through tackling climate change or, you know, addressing inequality and unfairness, improving the supply chains, you know, bringing opportunity to more people, equality and so on. There's all different dimensions of a worthy purpose. But what Deloitte found was that there was significant, I mean, really, really significant payback from being a business driven by purpose. And so on this infographic here, it summarizes their key findings. And I've just used a yellow highlighter pen just to draw our attention to 2 of those particular findings. Towards the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see that number 39.5%. This is what Deloitte found, that a business that has purpose at its core, that is visibly, demonstrably, believably purpose-driven, typically can charge 39.5% higher prices. Just imagine for a second if you were able to charge and still sell the same amount, 39% higher prices than you do today. Just imagine all that extra 39% flowing through to your bottom line. I mean, even if that's what Deloitte found, they found 39.5%. I'm not hung up on that number. If it was 3.95%, if it was a tenth of that, if they were 10 times wrong, and it was only a 3.9, say 4% increase in your prices, and still sell the same amount, that would still flow through to the bottom line. That would still, for many businesses, be transformative. Now, they found that and all these other percentage improvements, they found that being purpose-driven drove costs down, it drove up your ability to attract talent, it drove up productivity and efficiency, it drives up referrals, it drives up brand awareness and trust and so on. And all of those things add up to, and the bottom left-hand statistic is the one that really sort of brings it all together. They found that a purpose-driven business ends up being worth 4 times as much money. Combination of being more productive, selling more, having higher customer loyalty, being able to charge higher prices, having more productivity, lower costs, and so on. That a purpose-driven business is 4 times as valuable, 4 times higher EBITDA rate valuation. The multiple of profits that someone will pay you in the open market was 4 times higher. Now, again, let's not get hung up on whether it is or isn't for your business 4 times higher. If it was 40% higher or even 4% higher, the point is there is a very real, very significant financial payback using the latest research here on the screen in front of us from being a purpose-driven business, from doing stuff that matters. At this point in time, I think more than ever, and this research is getting stronger all the time, more than ever, this stuff matters. This is the new way in which we can differentiate ourselves. Yeah, my previous books looked at all the other things you can do. I'll give you those with pleasure. But really what's exciting to me is that this is new. This is stuff which most of us are not doing in our businesses. And once we start folding this in as well, our ability to respond to the recession, our ability to hold our heads high knowing we're making a difference, our ability to attract talent and get referrals and build a business to be proud of, to create a legacy, make a positive contribution to the world, to start making a difference to areas like climate change, for example, and inequality and poverty and hunger, at the same time as building a more successful, profitable business that earns us more money and we can sell for more when we come to cash in the chips. All of that is suggested by this research. And that brings me really to the third book. You can actually see it over my shoulder there, but I'm holding up a copy of it here, Our Time to Rise. This is the third book that I would love to give to you today. It's my most recent book, and it sets out a step-by-step process for what each of us can do in really simple terms to start tapping into that kind of purpose-driven, purpose premium that Deloitte were talking about. To start tapping into those higher prices, those higher levels of productivity, those that higher brand awareness and customer loyalty, and ultimately higher value in our business because we have a higher purpose in our business. So I'm going to give you a step-by-step guide. I'll email that to you afterwards so that we don't have to cut down any trees and so on. I'll give you my email address so that we can connect via email, because obviously I don't have your email address at the moment. But if you want this, I'll happily send it to you. But before you get the book, in our time together today, what I thought would be most useful is for me to sort of identify, I think, the 2 key things. I'm going to use these 2 exclamation marks as my kind of visual prompt. We're going to look at the 2 major factors in this equation, the 2 simplest, easiest, quickest, fastest, most powerful things that you can do in your business, as indeed many others are already doing in their businesses, to take these kind of ideas and embed them and then start benefiting from them. You start benefiting from them and the world. And then the book, which I'll send you afterwards, will drill down into much more detail. So in order to show you these 2 sort of exclamation marks, these 2 wow elements, these 2 things that when you add those into your business, everything changes. I'm going to talk about coffee for a minute. And just imagine that you fancy a cup of coffee. It doesn't matter if you don't drink coffee, a cup of tea, whatever it is that's in Steve's cup there, whatever's in my cup. You're out in town, you're on a street of shops, there in front of you, directly in front of you are 2 coffee shops, and you want to go in and you want to buy a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, whatever it is that is your particular poison. So you're going to go into one or other of these two coffee shops. Now, on the face of it, you could just flip a coin because what's there to choose between the two? In fact, even more so, when you look more closely, they both serve the same coffee beans. They both make the coffee using the same machine, the same milk, the same grains, using equally nice baristas, in equally nice furnishings and surroundings, and equally clean. They even charge exactly the same amount of money. If it's a UK coffee shop, that's probably £3 or whatever the going price is. Whatever the going price in your town, they both charge that. So you look at them, and on the face of it, there's nothing to choose between these two coffee shops. But actually, when you look a little bit closer, there is one little difference. The coffee shop on the left doesn't do what I'm about to explain that the coffee shop on the right does. You see, the coffee shop on the right, there's a sign in its window, and it's a chalkboard, and it says, it says something like, thanks to you, we've been able to provide 6 million days of help to people in need. In fact, it says 6,223,168. It's a very specific number. They chalked it up that morning. It's the latest, most up-to-date figure. And your initial reaction is, what? But there's a QR code underneath it. So you hold your phone up to the QR code, and it takes you to a web page. And on the web page, it explains, in fact, I'm going to share with you the web page that it takes you to. So it takes you to a web page that looks rather like this. And it's an impact statement. It's an impact statement for a coffee shop. And it says, our mission is to consistently deliver beautiful coffee. Well, I guess every coffee shop could say that, couldn't they? But it goes on to explain on the left, as you can see, where every cup we serve also has a beautiful global impact by providing a day of food, water, or other help to people in need. And that's our mission, so that it says in the middle, by 2030, which is, of course, the deadline for the UN Global Goals, or the Sustainable Development Goals that you can see on the wall behind me here, so that by 2030, we can unlock 10 million days of food, water, or other help. And why is that our mission? Because we believe, it says on the right, in using the power of small to make great things happen through our business. We believe in being the change we want to see and creating habits that makes things better for humanity and our planet. But essentially, you go into the coffee shop, you buy your coffee, and a young child in Africa or somewhere gets access to clean water or food or education for the day that you brought your coffee. And that sounds fascinating. That sounds intriguing. That sounds amazing, in fact, but it also sounds a bit incredible. But the credibility comes from the fact they back this up with real-time data that comes from the charity b1g1.com that shows their direct impact by project. The figure that's chalked up on the board in the front window is also their live real-time feed from the charity b1g1 on their website. If we sat here long enough, we'd see all 6 million days worth of help that this little coffee shop's been able to provide. In fact, if you scroll down, you can see they're a UK-based coffee shop, and here are all the places in the world that their 6 million days of help has reached out. But they can also analyze it, and they do, their 6 million days of help analyzed by each of the UN Global Goals, how many days worth of help they provided around poverty, around hunger, around health and well-being, education, clean water, and so on. So essentially, what you discover is that the coffee shop on the right, just because you go in there and buy a cup of coffee, you get your cup of coffee for £3, exactly the same price as the coffee shop next door. But not only do you get your coffee, but that coffee unlocks a day of kindness that makes a difference to someone else's life somewhere around the world. It either unlocks a day's worth of access to clean water or food or education. And you've just seen the evidence, you can see the evidence that that's actually happening. It doesn't cost you any extra, but it happens as a byproduct. Their business model is that for every cup of coffee we sell, we do some good in the world. And we'll expand on that into a general business model that we can apply in your business in a second. But let's just take a look at why you might want to do that. So you're now standing outside these two coffee shops. You can choose to go in the one on the left, where for £3 you'll get the same cup of coffee, or the one on the right, where for £3 you'll get the same cup of coffee, but you'll also help change a life. In the chat box, would you type in either left or right for whichever coffee shop you're going to go to? The one on the right, in my opinion, is doing the right thing. So that's kind of a way of thinking about it. So in the chat box, which coffee shop, you want to go in one coffee shop or another, let me know whether you would go into the coffee shop on the right or the left. And in fact, when you type it in, please, there's a little option of who sees your message. If you don't tick everyone, then probably Steve is the only person that will see it. So please make sure that your message comes to everyone. And then we should start seeing it. I don't see any messages at the moment. So you're going to go into a coffee shop. So Chris is going in the one on the right. Steve is going in the one on the right. So is Rashid. so is Sydney. So we've got 4 going in the one on the right, no one going in the one on the left. You've got to go in one or the other, guys. Dip pen on the right also. It's the same coffee. It's the same coffee. It's the same price. It's just a different choice because the business is driven by a different motivation, essentially. And as far as I can see, so that's about 10 of us now, every single one of us going to the one on the right. In fact, interestingly, the last time someone said they were going to go in the coffee shop on the left, and I asked them why out of interest, they said because the queue on the coffee shop on the right is too big. And in a sense, we can see that here because I think there are 19 of us. I haven't seen anyone say that we're going on the left. So unless you type in very quickly, my guess is, and this is the scorecard, we've now got nobody going in the coffee shop on the left, and we've got 19 of us, because I would certainly go in on the coffee shop on the right. Now, I'm an accountant. Before that was an economist. I'm a business analyst. I'm a data-driven, research-driven analyzer of what works in business. Just remind me, out of interest, the coffee shop that sells no cups of coffee at £3 makes total sales of no pounds. And the coffee shop that sells 19 cups of coffee at £3 makes a total sales of £57. Which of those two, out of interest, will probably be the more profitable, will be the more successful? Which of those two sells more coffee, can employ more people? Which of those two coffee shops gets talked about more? There's nothing to say about the coffee shop on the left. They just serve decent coffee. The coffee shop on the right, because it has purpose, its purpose is, as we sell cups of coffee, we help people. Because it has that purpose, it's tapping into the kind of research that Deloitte found. And it's getting these extraordinarily different results. There is no analyst in the world that would suggest you build your business like the coffee shop on the left. Every analyst in the world, other things being equal, will look at what the other things are. Essentially, how much is this going to cost? Okay, let's come back to that. But if we put to one side the cost issue for a second, we will come back to it. If they cost the same, there is absolutely no doubt, is there, that the only logical way to run a business would be this way. The only logical way would be to build this kind of purpose into your business model, because that's how you differentiate yourself. When the market's getting tough and people have to make a choice between one coffee shop or the other, or maybe a bit less coffee, fewer coffee shop visits this week, it's absolutely critical that we attract the customer that there is. This is how you do it. Now, I can understand, and not only will this make us more money, and Deloitte suggested make our business 4 times as valuable, not only that, but which of these two coffee shop models, which of these business models actually puts a smile on your face? Which of these puts joy in your heart? Which of them gives you joy and pride? Which one is going to make your kids and grandchildren say, that's wonderful, Dad, Mum, Grandma, Granddad? The one that's changing lives. No one says that about this kind of coffee shop, but everyone says it about this kind of coffee shop. So at an emotional level, at a practical level, at a financial level, being the coffee shop on the right, doing the right thing, doing the right thing into our business models pays back. Providing, of course, that the cost of that is not prohibitive. So out of interest, let's say that most of the time this coffee shop provides one, for every cup of coffee it sells at £3, it provides a day's worth of clean water to a young child in Kenya, for example. I went and built a mud hut for a family in Kenya, and we went to the well, and I experienced what bringing water back from a distant well was at 40 degrees temperature uphill, because water is always downhill from where you're based. That's where water flows, isn't it? So walking uphill with heavy buckets of water, absolutely exhausting. And then it looked like sludge anyway. We were fortunately only mixing it with soil to make mud to build to pack around an aluminium frame to make a home. But people drink this, but they don't have to drink it anymore, because you buy your coffee in this coffee shop. Out of interest, then, how much do you think it would cost for out of the sale of every cup of coffee, how much is the coffee shop going to have to give to provide clean water to that family in Kenya, for example? So a guess, is it a pound? Is it a dollar? Is it 50 pence? In whatever currency, whatever unit you want, but please estimate the cost, because the cost would probably be the only thing that would put us off doing this, wouldn't it? Because clearly selling 19 cups of coffee is better than 0 cups of coffee, unless it's too expensive. So in the chat box, estimate your cost. So I've got a 2 pence cost from Wine Corner, 5 pence from Chris. Any advances? Any different guesses? I need a guess from everybody. So I'm looking for 19 different guesses, please. £1 from Steve. 1%, Roseanne says, so that'd be about 3 pence, wouldn't it? Sydney says 50p. So there's quite a wide range here, but the average of that range is probably 20, 30, 40, 50p. The lowest, I think I'm right in saying, is 2p. Even the lowest estimate here is wrong, is too high. In fact, the cost to provide 1 day's worth of clean water, I'll show you in a second, is less than half a pence. So 1/2 of a pence of the £3 that they make is all it costs to generate 19 sales. I don't know any other marketing strategy. If you see this as a marketing strategy, now I don't. I see this as a strategy to put purpose at the core of our business, to make a positive contribution to humanity and to the planet and to make the world a better place. But were you not to see it as that, were you simply to see it as a marketing strategy, this is a marketing strategy that costs less than half a pence per cup of coffee and delivers those kind of returns. You know, with due respect to most other marketing experts, that's the best use of your marketing budget you can possibly have. And it's not a fixed cost. You only spend the money if you sold the cup of coffee. It's results driven. It costs less than 1/2p for every confirmed sale of coffee, not a figure in advance. So it's extraordinarily effective. It's also extraordinarily inexpensive. Let me just prove to you that you can provide clean water for less than, so I should now be sharing my screen. This is B1G, and the charity that allows the coffee shop to showcase and scorecard its impact, and will allow you to do exactly the same if you choose to. I think of it as Amazon for kindness. It's a big online shop where we can find and fund acts of kindness. And we can do all sorts of keyword searches for those. But if at the moment, all I've done is I've just searched for the least expensive projects. I searched the hundreds of projects which I could fund by cost. And we can see here that there's a project in Kenya that allows us to fund boreholes. Those boreholes are actually coupled with solar powered pumps so that they are environmentally friendly, have a low carbon footprint. It costs, well, actually, if we take a look, it's $1.47. That's $1.47, which is about £1.20 for 365 days worth of water. So that's less actually than 1/3 of a pence. I exaggerated. So for every cup of coffee, less than 1/3 of a cent. And one of the geniuses of this particular charity is it essentially allows us to crowdfund. Obviously, that pump that you can see there, that borehole, doesn't cost 1 cent or $1.47. It costs hundreds of dollars to put that in. But because they then take the cost of the borehole and they divide it by the number of people that it's going to deliver water to and the number of days, they are able to work out the per person per day funding costs. 1 cent a day, 3 cents a week, 13 cents a month, $1.45 a year per person, less than 1/3 of a pence UK currency. And they allow us to crowdfund. So the coffee shop, if it sells 1,000 cups of coffee, that's actually going to cost it $5 or $6. It sells 1,000 cups of coffee, that's £3,000. That's probably a week's worth of sales. Cleaning up versus all the other coffee shops in town, and it's $5, £4 sterling. There is no other business strategy driven by research, but also reinforced by you guys, because this wasn't research from some cold group. This was you saying how you would make your buying decisions. 19-0. No one would choose to shop in that business there. Why would you choose to run your business, whatever your business does, whether it's, I'm pretty sure you don't run a coffee shop, but why would you choose to run your business like this one? When demonstrably, whether it's Deloitte's evidence or the evidence of this group, this one is the right thing for the planet, the right thing for humanity, the right thing for your bank account, the right thing for your accountant, the right thing for our economies. If we step back from the coffee shop specific example and just draw out the general principles here, because the book will set them out for you in much more detail. I'd love to give it to you afterwards. But the general principles of these two sort of key factors are this. Imagine if every time something good happened in your business, that unlocks something good in the world. So let me give you an example. Imagine if every time you got a sales lead, a tree was planted. Imagine if every time you turned a sales lead into a customer, a child was fed. Imagine if every time you sent out an invoice, a child was educated for a day. Imagine if every time a customer paid on time, a child got access to malaria net for the days to stop them getting bitten by a fly overnight and catching malaria, which is potentially fatal. Imagine if every time something good happened, a referral, a testimonial, a sale, an invoice, hitting a deadline, getting a getting a new sales lead, etc., 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 social media follower. Imagine if everything that was good in your business spilled out and made something good happen in the world. Now, the coffee shop example is, what's good for the coffee shop is they sell a cup of coffee, and the good thing for the world is a day's worth of water. But it doesn't have to be sales, and it doesn't have to be water or coffee. It can be anything that's a trigger that you decide you're going to use as the trigger. We get an opportunity to pitch. We get someone comes to an event, someone follows us on social media. Whatever you decide is a trigger, and whatever you decide is the impact that that trigger creates. And if I just jump back across into that B1G1 charity again, and just give you a sense of the other sorts of impacts that you could create. So here we go. This is projects. I'm going to sort the projects by low cost again. So I could do a keyword search. I could search for trees or animals or dogs, but we can feed a child for less than 1 cent. We can actually provide, in this case, this is grain provided to farmers in Malawi, a year's worth of grain, a big sack of enough grain, $1.85, which obviously when planted and grown and tended and harvested and then prepared, eventually becomes a year's worth of food. But it's less than 1 cent a day, $1.85 a year to provide enough grain to then feed into literally the process of nourishing and feeding a child. Or if it were animals, so we could say that every time we send out an invoice, we provide a week's worth of food for a child. That's 7 cents or 1 cent if it provided a day's worth. We can vaccinate a street dog against rabies for 1 cent. Again, the vaccination probably costs $5, but it lasts for 2 years. So that's about 1 cent a day, isn't it? And again, it gives us the opportunity of funding down at 1 day's worth or a week's worth or a month's worth or any number. There are so many different projects that we can tap into for just pennies. We can, I love this one. We can provide vitamin supplements that provide child. I actually visited the school that does this in Kenya back in 2019, just before COVID hit. What they are doing with children that weren't lucky enough to avoid blindness, but what they're also doing with those that sadly are blind and helping them get an education to actually create a life for themselves is extraordinary. Imagine if, for example, every time someone reads one of your e-newsletters or opens one of your email marketing pieces, not only does someone get the gift of being able to read the offer that you made to them, but that a child in Kenya, for example, gets the gift of sight because they get vitamin supplements that prevent child blindness. 1,000 people open your emails, that's going to cost you $10 for 1,000 lots of 1 cent. Just imagine having emails that change lives, emails that give the gift of sight. Just imagine how much more likely people are, and this is the point, how much more likely people are to open your email and read it if it's an email that gives the gift of sight. So you get 1,000 people reading your email sales message and it costs you $10 to break through the void. Just extraordinarily simple, extraordinarily powerful. And there are literally hundreds of projects that we can tap into, not just 1 cent and 2 cent projects. We can tap into projects for dollars and tens of dollars and so on, but there are so many projects that we can tap into, so many acts of kindness, so many of these things that we can trigger and unlock for just a few cents. Clean water, access to malaria bed nets, a playground, sanitation, food, medicine for school children. You can help a school child in Ethiopia for 2 cents a day with medical treatment. And the list goes on and on and on. We can provide healthcare to a community in Kenya from 3 cents a day per person. We can help someone run a beekeeping business in Kenya. I went to visit that project as well for 3 cents a day. What is possible is extraordinary. What is possible with our businesses to be like the coffee shop, to tap into these kind of results is truly extraordinary and so incredibly powerful. So that's the first of the, and B1G1, by the way, makes this remarkably easy. So let's say, for example, that you took this idea of, every time someone reads our newsletter, they, well, in fact, let's not do that. Let me, in the chat box, can someone, the first person to type in one of these things that's good for your business, is it making a sale or winning a customer or getting a testimonial or referral? Just type in something that is good for your business, that is there's a win, that's some kind of a punch air moment for you in your business. What is one thing that is good for you in your business? There's probably lots, but just very quickly, I'll work with the first one that comes up. So one thing that's good for your business. Please, someone tell me something that's good for their business. We're not so up against the wall that nothing is good for our business. Making a sale is probably at least that, isn't it? But I need you to tell me. So type in now, if you would. My goodness, you guys, you're a little bit slow on the uptake. One thing that's good for your business. So Rashid, helping humanity, is that actually, I mean, that's making so helping humanity is what I would call one of these, isn't it? It's one of the consequences. Wouldn't it be great if every time Roseanne makes a sale, she was able to help humanity, Rashid? In fact, let's link those two things together. Let me show you then, and Rashid, you can give it very, very specifically then, helping humanity, what kind of way? Would that be food, water, education, healthcare? Give me an example, an area of helping humanity that's particularly resonant to you. And then I'll link that up with Roseanne's making sales, and I'll show you how easy it is to build this into the systems and habits of your business. So just one area, Rashid, where you would most like to help humanity, and I'll factor that into this practical example that we look at here. So Rashid, helping humanity, solar energy. Okay, fantastic, solar. Yeah, that's brilliant. Let's use this one then, because let's say that every time, in fact, let me do a search for solar. I know there are projects in here that allow us to offset solar lights for families, giving solar lights to families in India. Let's say we wanted to do that. We wanted to give solar lights so that families in India could have light over in the evening when it would otherwise be dark, when they couldn't otherwise study, when life would sort of have to close down because their home is too dark. B1G1 calls this a giving story. So let's take Roseanne's idea of every time we make a sale. So I'm going to type in, I'm going to create an activity called when we sell something. Doesn't have to be selling something, but that was what Roseanne suggested. I'm going to save that as an activity, show you how easy this is. I'm going to sell, so I've dragged it over here. When we sell something, we give a day's worth of access to solar lighting to an underprivileged family. Now, if your sale, Roseanne, was for $1,000, you might choose to give, a week's worth or a month's worth. But let's say it's a relatively low-level sale. When we sell something, we give a family, an underprivileged person, access to solar lighting for a day. I'm just going to create that using the create button, and that now exists as part of, I've logged into my B1G1 account, but you can see it says when we sell something, we give a day's worth of solar lighting. At the end of each month, I'd say, how many sales have I made? If I'd made, let's say I'd made 61 sales. I happen to be 61 years old today, so that's why I'm using that number. But let's say at the end of the month, I'd made 61 sales. I could simply add that to my shopping cart. You can now see it's in my shopping basket up here. And I, just like Amazon, it's going to cost me $9.76 instead of something being delivered, a marker pen being delivered to my office. 61 days of access to solar lighting is being delivered to people in India, underprivileged people in India. That's going to cost $9.76. I'm going to use credit that I've loaded up rather than slow the process down by putting my credit card in front of you. So I'm literally just going to check out. This is just like, as I said, Amazon for kindness. And now we've just funded together. So on behalf of Rashid and Roseanne for suggesting selling something and solar, switching to solar, we've just given 61 days of solar lighting. And I've now got the social media stuff that I could share. I personally don't do that, but I could. But the reason I wanted to actually make a giving live in front of you is, one, is to show you how easy it is. And secondly, to make this, to illustrate where the second lot of amazingness comes from, because B1G1 now knows that we've just given 61 days worth of access to solar lighting. And in fact, it knows all the things that we've given over the years. So I can go up here to impact widgets, and B1G1 keeps the score. I've been doing this for 12 years now. So in my little business over those 12 years, I've given just over 6 million days of help. Every time I've sold books, every time people have come on webinars, people have come on events and so on. We've linked all of those good things in our business to good things in the world. And the net effect is, for doing this for 12 years, is that we've been able to unlock 6 million days worth of help. If we sat here long enough, we would see the 61 days worth of solar power. But B1G1 is able to keep a track of all of the giving we've made, not in dollar terms. This does not tell me, elsewhere it will tell me, but here it doesn't tell me how many dollars I've given. What it shows me, it gives me, is a new way of scorecarding my impact against each of the UN global goals. This map showing me, stevepipe.com, sitting up here in Leeds, and all the places in the world where over those 12 years, we've been able to reach out and make a difference. And I was able to put those on my website just by clicking embed. and copying that code once. If we go to my website, which is over here, and you'll be able to do exactly the same on yours, you see. The second key thing is in going public with a scorecard, measuring your positive impact on the world. This is my impact statement on stevepipe.com, my website. My mission is to give away 1 million copies of the book, which is why I'm really keen to give you a copy as well, so that we can use the ideas in it to unlock 100 million days of food and water. And here's where we're at so far. 6 million days direct impact by location, same 6 million analyzed by location, the same 6 million analyzed by the global goals. And then that 6 million is part of a much bigger figure, the 20 or 30 million that we've created collectively as a community. That to me is an extraordinary set of possibilities, an extraordinarily simple way, taking these two ideas. Idea one, what if every time something good happened in your business, like you sell a cup of coffee or your equivalent, that made something good happen in the world, like the coffee shop provides a day of water? And what if you then went public with an impact scorecard that measured your real-time positive impact on the world? Just imagine how that would let you tap into the sort of research that Deloitte's were talking about, these extraordinary purpose-driven paybacks, higher prices, 4 times as valuable a business. Just imagine how it would let you tap into these 19 sales versus no sales. In challenging times, we need to find every tactic, every strategy we can to really help our businesses survive, let alone thrive. And this is the stuff which is currently working. This is the stuff which is fundamentally different from what everybody else is doing. And this is why it has such an incredible opportunity facing us to be first, to lead the way, to really rise, to put, each of those 6 million days of help that the coffee shops provided is a smile. They put 6 million smiles on people's faces by helping businesses and people around the world to rise. They're using their business as a force for good. They put purpose at the core of their business, and consequently they and the planet and humanity are benefiting more than anybody dared to imagine. Yes, we can go back to all these other techniquey things which I wrote about in the earlier books. I'll give you those as well if that's your preference, but they won't deliver those kind of results. They just won't anymore. They might have done at some point in the past, but they just won't anymore. This is the stuff in the world that we now live in which matters most, and therefore which makes the greatest difference. So I have shared with you much of what I wanted to suggest. I guess the only other thing that, just before we go to questions and so on, because I've covered the 2 big points, I'll give the rest of it to you in the books. My suggestion, and for whatever your business is, so bear in mind, you saw my impact scorecard. I've been able to, in my little business, which I sold a few years ago, and for the more recent years, I've just been me as a speaker, me doing occasional bits of consulting work and so on. And yet we've still provided more than 6 million days of help just off the back of the little things that we've done, because helping people is really not very expensive, as we saw, less than 1 cent a day in many cases. If just imagine how much set apart your business were to be if you were I don't know what you do, if you're the only accountants or the only wine companies or the only refrigeration units business or the only retailers or the only hairdressers or whatever it is you do, replace any of those words with what your business does. If you were the only one of those in your town, in your region, in your market, in your area, that had set a target that our goal is to provide 1 million days of help. Just sit back and think about that as a marketing message, as a branding message. You're the hairdressers that are there to provide 1 million days of help, or the accountants, or the manufacturer, or the retailer, or whatever. But just take that 1 million days of help. Given that, for example, it costs $1.47 to provide 365 days of clean water, it actually costs $4,000 to provide 1 million days of water. If you were to set that 1 million day target over a 10-year period, let's say our goal is over the next 10 years to provide 1 million days of help. That's $400 a year. I mean, and that's about £300 a year, isn't it? That's inconsequential compared to the payback, the purpose premium from being the coffee shop or the retailer or whatever it is that you do that's out to create 1 million, create 1 million smiles, provide 1 million days of help, and has a scorecard that proves it. Because it's one thing saying we're going to provide 1 million days of help. People are naturally skeptical. When you have real-time data feed coming from a global charity onto your website that proves it, that skepticism melts away and everybody buys into that message. So there's my suggestion to you, is you think about a big, hairy, audacious goal, like 1 million days of help in some form or other. Break it, set that goal over a 10-year, 20-year period you choose. Becomes very, very manageable. If that 1 million days of help over the next 20 years between now and when you retired was over a 20-year period, that could cost you from as little as $200 a year, $4 a week, £3 a week or something. It's don't tell me that's not possible. Don't tell me that that won't make a difference. It will. All of those things are the case, obviously. So I love this stuff. I'm passionate about this stuff. I'm now effectively retired, and all I do is help businesses do this kind of stuff, which is why my new books are around this kind of stuff. So if you really want to be part of this, there's an optional implementation session at 5:30. We'll hang around for another 20 minutes or so. During that time, I will buy you the software that I've shown you so that you can use it straight away. I will give you the 3 books. I will support you on an ongoing basis implementing these ideas in your business, and I will give you around that a complete marketing system so that you can really capitalize on it. And what I mean, let me just show you what I mean by that. You can see over my shoulder there are 2 books. The first one of which, Our Time to Rise. I would love to create, as you can see on the screen here, a special edition of this book specifically for you. We can either say produced for the friends of Fred Smith or whatever your business name is, or with a foreword by Fred Smith. I would love to drop a foreword written by you into this book and then create a special digital version. On the back of the book, we'll put your brand, your logo, your contact details and so on, so it becomes your book. And then you'll have a license to give away that book for free, an unlimited number of copies of that book, so that you can use that to start building your brand and building awareness. And I'll create all the marketing images around your special version of the book with your name on the cover, so that you can use that on social media and so on. So firstly, the first part of the marketing system is you'll have a book that explains to the world why you're doing what you're doing and helps other people do the same, so that you can use that as a lead generator, as a way of establishing your brand and so on. And then the second part of the marketing system is, and you can see this over this shoulder here, I've also written a book called The World's Most Inspiring Businesses. And if you do this stuff, I would absolutely love to feature you in that book, The World's Most Inspiring Businesses. So you'll then be able to say, we've been named as one of the world's most inspiring accountants, hairdressers, whatever it is you'll do. You'll get all the logos that you can use on your letterhead on your website and so on. There'll be certificates, there'll be your entry in the book itself, so that you can, and all the marketing materials that you can go to market as, we've been officially named as one of the world's most inspiring, whatever it is you do, because you feature in the book, The World's Most Inspiring. The criteria for featuring in the book are these 2 things. If you have at least one of these going on every time we make a sale, for example, we provide a day's worth of water, and you scorecard it so the world can see that that's not an empty promise, but it's actually happening, then you qualify to feature in the book. I would love to feature in the book. I would love to go on this journey with you to make our world a better place. It is such an easy, such a powerful thing to do. It absolutely is working now. I'll give you those marketing system, all those other resources if you want to hang around in the session at the end. And I guess, I'll give you my time now and ongoing. I'll give you the tools I've created. I'll even use my money to buy the software for you. All I ask is that you treat this as a priority today. So I guess there are 4 possible reactions to that. There's the I'll be there, see you in a couple of minutes kind of reaction, in which case, would you just type I'm in into the chat box so I can get a sense of that there are going to be some of us there in 10 minutes time. So it's the I'm in, I'm going to do something with this in the next couple of weeks, the next couple of months kind of thing. Second reaction is, well, I want to be there, but actually I can't be there at 5:30. I've got to be somewhere else, in which case, please email me. If you really want to be there, but you really can't, here's my email address, steve@stevepike.com. Email me to persuade me that you care enough, that it was unavoidable you couldn't be there at 5:30, because really I'm using the being there at 5:30 as a way of filtering out those people that really want to do this, as opposed to those that aren't really sure. So I'll put my time, money and energy into those that really want to do this and really want to do this now. If you do really want it but you can't make it, persuade me. Obviously, there's 2 other categories. There's the I don't need to be there at 5:30 because I'm doing enough already to help make the world a better place, in which case, thanks so much for everything you're doing. and there's the I don't want to be there at 5:30 because this isn't really for me, in which case, thank you so much for being here today. But I hope some of you will be there at 5:30. I hope some of you do want to take these ideas and make them happen. If it is for you, please say I'm in the chat box so that I know, and then I'll see you afterwards. But it's now question times, I guess, because I've just finished. I've covered the material I promised to cover.
Brilliant, lovely. Thank you, Steve. That's fantastic. Yeah, so you can either speak out or unmute, ask to unmute yourselves and speak out and ask Steve a question direct, or you can put a question in the chat box. We don't mind at all. Yeah, Chris has got there. Brilliant. That's something that's there. Excellent. So any questions at all from the fantastic stuff Steve's spoken about? Oh, Sydney's raised a hand. So Sydney, I'll take that. We'll take that as a yes, I'm in kind of thing. That's good. Sydney, excellent.
Hi.
Hi,
Steve. Thank you for your brilliant presentation.
Oh, that's very kind of you. My great pleasure.
Yeah. Key thing, as you're a data person as well, you know that data can be sliced and diced in different ways.
Yeah.
The information from Deloitte, is it an actual sample data? Is it, because it's not revealed where the source of that data is. They easily have clustered, say, 100 people, and
I think it's a year ago since I looked at the original report, and I must admit I was really taken by the headline figure, so I didn't drill down into the methodology because it's Deloitte. It's going to be done rigorously. It's not some piece of thin marketing things put out by a one-man band business. I believe it's a combination of original research, but also literature review. I think they've looked at the other research that has been done elsewhere and pulled that literature review type desk research together with their original large sample work. That's my recollection of what it is. But as I say, I wouldn't get hung up on 39.5% increase in prices or 4 times increase in value. I suspect for each of us, it's not going to be those figures or possibly anything like those figures. But even if it were a fraction of that, and even if it weren't any of that at all, my point is, which of these two kinds of coffee shops is the one that on a moral level, on a purpose level, on a humanity level, on a values-driven level, feels right? Regardless, even if these were the same level of sales in each cases, which demonstrably in this case they weren't on this small sample of 19, but even if they were the same sales, which of these would feel like the right way to run a business that does more than makes profit, that makes a difference, would be the right way for me? So there are so many ways. For me, these ideas are a bringing together of the two hats that I think we need to use when we make decisions. We need to use our analytical hat, data-driven, yes, for sure, but we need to use our emotional hat as well. How does it feel? And if a decision meets both criteria, yeah, it works analytically, the data supports it, and it feels right, then that's brilliant. That's like the sweet spot of decision making. The difficulty comes when something feels right, but the data doesn't support it, or the data supports it, investing in armaments, but it doesn't feel right, for example. But in this case, we've got a strategy, which for me at least ticks both boxes. Massive tick on the emotional level. Is it the right thing to do from a human point of view? And is it the right thing to do from an analytical, accounting, research, evidence-driven basis? Yes.
So another question, the dashboard that you've got here,
yeah,
is it syncing with public sector dashboard or UN dashboards with the SDGs?
Yeah, so if I go back to, what B1G1 is, and the reason that I use I don't run B1G1, B1G1 is not my charity. It's the charity that I use to do this stuff because I haven't found a better way. I haven't even found a remotely comparable way. So every one of the things you can give to through the B1G1 giving engine, I called it Amazon for Kindness, by the way, it has nothing to do with Amazon, but every single one of their projects that you could give to, so for example, early childhood development in South Africa, is linked. They have identified as part of their due diligence process which of the 17 SDGs, in this case for education and goal 10, reducing inequalities, this is particularly impactful around. And so if I were to provide a day's worth of support for that program, it would add to my impacts for goal 10, inequalities, and goal 4, for the benefit of everybody else. There were 17 SDGs. development goals. What does S stand for in development goals? Sustainable development goals, or frequently referred to as the UN global goals. You can see some of them on the wall behind me up there. They were set in 2015. They are to be achieved by 2030 globally. Every single civilized country in the world signed up to these goals. Every single civilized country in the world is behind where it needs to be. We are collectively as mankind behind where we need to be to tackle these goals, which is why I think it is time for businesses like ours to rise, to take a stand and say, well, we're going to play our part in doing something about it. So what B1G1 does is for every project, it identifies the SDGs that those projects are most relevant to. And then as and when we support projects in that area, it includes them within our tallies. So if I scroll down now, these are my impact widgets. And here are the 17 SDGs. I showed them to you before, but here are the 17 SDGs. Every time I give a day's worth of water, for example, it will add another day's worth, another impact around to the 4 million that I've already given around this goal 6, which is clean water and sanitation. So it measures our impacts against each of those global goals. It has nothing to do with other dashboards in the sense that it doesn't integrate with other dashboards, but it gives you a whole new way, a whole additional set of measures on top of whatever you're currently measuring around both the SDGs, around the specific types of projects. And I personally love this one too, this interactive map that shows where in the world you're able to reach out. So there's little me sitting in Leeds, just in Yorkshire in England, and we've been able to make a difference in, well, every continent on the world that's essentially inhabited. I just find that extraordinary.
So if I may interject, I would say that's a human head count. That's impacted.
Yeah.
As opposed to currency. Now,
yes.
The other thing I would like to know is what percentage of that fundraising goes to the cause? Is it 100%?
Now that is a.
If it's not 100%, what percentage is administration?
That's brilliant, and I will explain afterwards in the optional session how and why it is 100%. It is quite an extraordinary model. It is 100% that goes through to funding those specific identifiable outcomes. But that'll take me a few minutes to explain. I'll do that in the optional session because it might not be that everybody who's here at the moment wants to know the answer to that. But Sydney, I will answer that question in a second. Great question. And the model is unique in that to allow that to be the case, as you'll see.
Okay, since we're leaving that, I'll put forward the next question to later.
Okay, brilliant.
Thank you.
Super. I'm just conscious of the time now, Steve. So yeah. Thank you very much. It's a fantastic session. So we have got the recording going, so we'll stop that in a sec. And
you can keep the recording going if you would, because I'd quite like to.
Yeah.
If someone misses this next session and tries to persuade me that they really want to be part of this, I'll send them the recording that they missed. So then they can decide if they want to take the action that we cover in it. So that'd be great if you would.
No problem at all. So on that basis, then, if I just share back to our screen, just to wrap up, really. So we've got through the questions. Is there any more questions from anyone? Any more questions that we can pop in the chat box? Feel free to give everyone. Steve has shared his email, or my email is on there, stevesaunders@actioncoach.com, and Bucky's email's there under the JJB accountants and business advisors. So if you go onto our website there, you'll get some more detail, and there's lots of information about JJB and why it's a different kind of accountancy practice for sure. It's certainly linking up with other people. So Steve's just popped his email in there. Perfect. Super. So thank you very much for coming along. Really good. Really appreciate you sparing the time. And we'll close the meeting, part one, if you like. We'll close that meeting now. And I'll just lose this slide and welcome Steve back for part two of the meeting. So if you have to go, if you want to go, or you need to go, you don't want to stay, then now's the time to say goodbye. Thanks again, and I'll hand back over to Steve. So thanks very much for coming along. Speak to you soon, we hope. Thank you.
Steve. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, so just to remind you, this is that optional session for those of you that actually want to do something with this and want to do something with this, hopefully in the next few days or weeks or months at longest, because the time is now to start doing something, for example, about climate change, isn't it? So I'm thrilled that there are still 12 of us here. I'm going to ask your permission, if I may, or ask for your permission. I want to get even more passionate, and I want to confront some brutal truths in this final session before I actually get you set up. So do I have your permission? This is a yes, no answer. It's a binary. Do I have your permission to get passionate and to confront some brutal truths in our time together? Silence will be taken as a yes, but please actually give me an actual yes or an actual no. And again, those are not long answers, yes or no. So for Chris, it's a definite yes. I appreciate that. No is even shorter. So Banji, it's a yes. I'm looking for a response from everybody who's here. There are 11 of us here. So a response. Sydney, it's a yes, which is fantastic. The chances are that people that don't respond aren't actually listening. They're doing something else, emails and so on. So to prove that you are listening, then do I have your permission to confront some brutal truths? So from Aoife, Sydney, Banji and Chris, it's a yes. And I'm keen to make sure that from the other 4 or 5 of us that are staying silent, that's Juan, Pastor, Festus and Anthony, I think. Are you actually with us? Is it a yes or is it a no? And Nat as well, I think. So yeah. There's still some silence there. So I'm guessing not everybody will actually be properly in the room, and that's fine. But it's useful to me to know that there are 4 of you properly in the room. And I think I showed you everything that I essentially wanted to show you. The reason I asked for permission and to get passionate is because the brutal truth is, we stayed in this final session because, if we were doing enough already, we would have, I gave you the option of, if you don't need to be there because I'm already doing enough, well, no problem, don't stay behind, thanks so much for caring. Well, you guys are here, you presumably want to do more, you don't feel you're doing enough. There is something about this idea, this model, these kind of metrics, which do appeal. And they certainly appeal to me, both at a rational level as an accountant and a human level as a father, as a spiritual being, I suppose. The truth is that we cannot put this off. If we don't do something with these ideas today, this is what will happen. You'll get on with the rest of your life and you'll never come back to these ideas. And so my job is to galvanize you to take some action now. And I'm going to do that by paying for the stuff. So there's literally nothing in the way. So the only thing that will stop you doing this is if you don't want to do it. So there's no other barrier, there's no other obstacle. And the other point is that you literally cannot do this properly, the stuff that we've looked at, without the B1G1 tools, which is why, so I don't want there to be anything in the way. I don't want you to start trying to do this without the right tools. I'll just buy them for you so that you can get up off the ground and make this happen. To go back to the question that Sydney asked me, what percentage of the money that we give through this charity B1G1 goes to fund the projects and how much is used up centrally? There's real genius in the answer to this. I think this is one of the things I absolutely love about the honesty of this particular model. So in the B1G1 world, there are 2 legal entities, and I use my hands to sort of symbolize that. There is B1G1, the charity, which is a US registered charity, and there is B1G1, the social enterprise. When I gave the $9 earlier during our call to fund 61 days worth of whatever it was we funded, I can't even remember what it was we funded. Oh, the solar lighting, wasn't it? 61 days of solar lighting. My $9 went from my bank account to B1G1, the charity, and B1G1, the charity will remit all $9, 100% of that $9 to the charity on the ground in, I think it was Kenya, wasn't it? The charity on the ground that actually is delivering the solar lights. And the money is ring fenced, so it can only be used by that charity. I think there were New Ways in Kenya, can only be used by New Ways, the registered charity, for that specific deliverable. In the same way that when I give $9 to Amazon to buy a bunch of black pens, they can only use my $9 to deliver to me a bunch of 9 pens. So we are funding, when we buy something through Amazon, a specified outcome. And it's exactly the same with the B1G1 model. 100% of my money goes to the charity, B1G1, the charity. They pass 100% of that through to the charity, in this case in Kenya. And that money is ring fenced so it can only be used to fund that specific outcome. And I can then judge whether the $9 to fund 61 days worth of solar lighting, in my opinion, is fair, is a good exchange of my money, is a good outcome for funding it for those few pennies or a few dollars. Now, so there's not, B1G1, the charity doesn't even deduct the credit card charge. When I pay $9 to B1G1, the charity, and it pays the $9 over to the charity in Kenya, there's all sorts of bank charges and so on. There's all the other costs of creating that technology and due diligence in the charities and making all of this possible. But not a single penny of those costs comes out of the $9 that I pay. Not a single penny. 100% of my giving flows through, which I think is really transparent and powerful. But how on earth is that possible? Because those costs, the bank charges and so on, are real. And the way it's possible is because of the second legal entity. Remember, there's B1G1, the charity, and there is B1G1, the social enterprise. The reason that B1G1, the charity, doesn't have to deduct those costs from my $9 is because B1G1, the social enterprise, picks up those costs. B1G1, the social enterprise, steps in and picks up all of those admin type costs. Well, that sounds brilliant. Other than the question, well, where does B1G1, the social enterprise, get the money from to be able to do that? And the answer is B1G1, the social enterprise, is a membership organization. There are thousands of businesses around the world, mine and Bucky's organization, JGB, and thousands of others who pay, most of us pay a dollar a day, $30 a month or so, as a contribution towards the costs. So we choose, in the same way that I pay $30 a month to use Zoom and $30 a month to use Dropbox and all those other tools that allow me to do things much more effectively than I can do without them. We choose as businesses to pay $1 a day, $2 a day, depends on how big our businesses are, to fund the cost of making that possible. So with B1G1, there are two money flows. There is the as and when I choose to give, as I gave $9 before earlier today, 100% of my $9 flows through to fund the specific outcome in question with no deduction whatsoever. And then once a month, I also pay $1 a day or $30 a month to fund everything else. It's my contribution towards those costs. Now, I personally love that transparency. What you are getting at, Sydney, is the underlying reality of courses. In every charity, there are costs. Most charities, however, the answer to your question is not clear. How much of what I give goes to projects and how much goes on admin. In most charities, you can't tell, because you give $10 and they decide how much goes to admin and whatever's left goes to projects. That's fine, but I personally love the transparency. The B1G1 model of $1 a day is my contribution to the admin costs, and everything else I choose to give flows directly through to my specified outcomes. That to me is more transparent, it is cleaner, it is more honest, it's certainly easier to understand. Every charity has admin costs, of course. Some choose to deal with it in the kind of confusing way, or most choose to deal with it in the confusing way. You've got to get the accounts to work out roughly how much of every dollar goes through to projects, and B1G1 chooses to really address that issue head on. So there are thousands of us that are members of the B1G1 organization movement, as they call it, and it's because of that this membership fee is the cost that might get in the way of you guys taking action, which is why I've said I will step in and pay for you to be able to use that stuff. I will pay for your membership for the first couple of months. I'll pay for the membership for the first couple of months so that it doesn't cost you a penny, so that you can then see for yourself, you can experience it from the inside, how well that works, how wonderful that feels, how easy that is to do, how joyful and how impactful that is. And then if you want to carry on beyond the months that I'm paying for, well, you can pick up the bill and start paying for it, or you can just stop, because it's a month-by-month arrangement. You're not locked into a long-term membership arrangement. It's 1 month at a time. So that's how that works. In fact, let me just put up the link so that I can show you a little bit more detail around that.
Am I correct in assuming that it's a match funding model? I do stuff with UNICEF,
right,
and the state government.
Yeah.
UNICEF simply funds like for like. If the state government puts, say, for example, $5 million, then UNICEF will put up $5 million in that regard. And so you can then say that the match fund is what covers administrative costs.
Well, you could say that, but there's no UNICEF or no government stepping in to pick up the admin costs. It's essentially us as businesses picking up those costs through our membership fees. So yeah, there's two sources of two cash flows. There's the giving flow, the donations, if you like, the donation flow, which is as and when we choose to give, 100% goes to the project, and then there is the monthly admin flow, which comes from thousands of small businesses around the world that choose to fund this initiative. Now, the B1G1 is a B Corp as well as a charity. It does have on its board of advisors Yves Dacord, former Director General of the Red Cross. It has Paul Polman, former CEO of Unilever, one of the architects of the SDGs. So it is a, it's a very powerful, very credible organisation. But there isn't government backing behind it for match funding. It's essentially we as businesses are recognising that it costs money to develop tools like this, in the same way that it costs Dropbox and Zoom money to develop the tools that they let us have for $30 a month or whatever. It costs money to do that in the charitable space as well. So let's understand that reality and let's build that into our business models. So what I put,
I'm so sorry to interject. I'm just trying to wrap my head around.
Yeah.
I deal with scenarios and assumptions I do a lot of econometric and business modeling. Let's assume the annual cost is £1 million. It is all well and good. £1 million. A number of funders or investors can easily match and take care of those admin costs.
Yeah.
If you suddenly have a surge onto the site and you have a behemoth of interest, and you then have a monthly cost of say between £1 million to £2 million, how do you offset that?
Well, firstly, remember, B1G1 isn't my business or organization. I don't run it. I use this as a set of tools. I understand reasonably well how it works, but I'm not defending them. I'm really just giving you my perception as someone who's used these tools and been part of their community for 12 years. So B1G1, as a social enterprise, its income stream is the $1 a day or $2 a day that businesses contribute. That obviously is a reasonably stable income over time, and it's a growing income over time as the movement grows and more businesses come in. They, as a social enterprise, they don't distribute it out as profits. They reinvest any surplus in growing the movement and enhancing and employing more people and so on. So it's a social enterprise. Its entire purpose is to do good. And it does that by supporting and working in parallel with B1G1, the charity, which is governed by all the usual charity regulations and rules and requirements. So some months there will be I'm guessing at some periods in its history there's probably been a surplus which they've reinvested and built up in order to fund the future development and growth, and in other months there's been a shortfall. And I happen to know that one of the two founders who was very successful in his former business has stepped in and bridged the shortfall with his personal funds on several occasions earlier in the history of the business, the history of the movement, as is the case, often the case, that people use their own money to keep charities afloat, don't they? So it's a combination of those kinds of things, Sydney.
Fantastic response. I'm delighted with your response.
Brilliant. Well, as I say, those are my understanding as a mere member of the community. What I'm going to do now, put in the chat box the link, because if you do want this stuff, if you do want to make a start with this stuff straight away, and it's not specifically you, Sydney, but each of us, any of us, I just clicked on the link in my step one, and I'll just share my screen as well. I'd encourage you guys to click on the link too. When you click on the link, it will take you through to this page. And crucial, so this is the membership page. Because it's not my organization, I can't give you membership, but what I will gladly do is I will reimburse you for the first couple of months. So if you want to take out a membership now for a month or two, I will then reimburse you in full in the next 24 hours. I use my PayPal account to reimburse you the full amount in dollar terms. So that full amount will vary on depending on how big your business is. So let me just show you on the form. Most businesses are tiny. Their turnover is less than 150,000. And for them, the annual cost is $365, i.e. $1 a day, the $1 a day I've referred to. That's the cheapest option. It is also possible, instead of paying for an annual membership, to pay for a monthly option. So I would suggest that if you want to save money, go for the annual option. If you're not sure about whether you want to do this after the first couple of months that I'll pay for, just click on the monthly option. That's a bit more than $1 a day, but only fractionally, $38 a month, 1 month at a time. Crucially, make sure that the word rise, you can see it over my shoulder there, it's the title of my book. If the word rise is written in there, that will mean that B1G1 know that I've introduced you to the B1G1 family. That will also make it possible for me to reimburse you the $38. You will have to pay $38, but I will reimburse you straight away. So if you want to go down this route of trying it for a month or two, I'll reimburse you for up to 2 months if you need me to. Fill in your details, go to the next step of the form, put in your credit card details, and then tell me that you've done it, which is, I think, step 2 that I've just posted up in the chat box. And I will then reimburse you from my PayPal account to your PayPal account. And I'll do that in the next 24 hours. So you will not be out of pocket. And that's 1 month at a time. You can cancel at the end of 1 month. And my hope is that's what you'll want to do. Obviously, if your business is a bit bigger, if your business has turnover of up to 1.2 million, it's $2 a day. Again, there's a monthly option, $76. If that's you, I'll happily send you $76 this month, $76 next month, so that you can use it for a couple of months. You can get this stuff underway in your business. If you don't do something with this stuff today, you never will. I mean, there are 8 people that have already left the meeting, and they're never going to do anything with any of this, are they? And the same will apply to anybody else who leaves this meeting without doing something, which is why I said, do I have your permission to be brutal about this, brutally honest and passionate? And my passion is, if this matters to you, you must do it now, because you won't do it tomorrow, you won't do it next week. I have a list of people that they will do, who told me that they will do this next week, and they never had. And I'd much rather not add your name to that list. But that is the reality. It's human nature, isn't it? We either do something now or we really don't do it at all. So I will reimburse you in full for those first 2 months if you need me to. Now, if you don't need me to, please don't ask me to, because I'm using my money. I've just sold my house and moved to a smaller house. I'm using my savings in order to do that. I'm not earning a single penny now. I'm now retired, but don't get a pension. So I'm using my savings to fund a lifestyle that allows me to create these books for you and do this stuff with you and to support you. Drawing down my savings, I'll happily do that. But if you don't need me to use my savings to fund you trying this out, then please don't ask me to, but I will gladly. You just need to email me your PayPal email address. My email address again is steve@stevepike.com, and I'm pretty sure I put that in the chat box, didn't I? Yeah, the second step, once you've done that first step, send me an email that says I've joined. And my email address is steve@stevepike.com. I'll then send you all the books I promised, but also tell me in that email your PayPal email address, and then I will be able to transfer the money to you straight away. So that's if you want to take action in the next couple of months, that's the way to give it a go, and I'll fund 1 or 2 months worth of that, whichever you would like me to. So there's no cost, because if you don't do something with it now, truthfully, you never will. I do have a second option for you, which isn't as generous, which is why I mention it second, but it might be the right for some of you. A few weeks ago, B1G1 gave a few of us the opportunity of just sharing what they call the B1G1 experience. Now, this is an opportunity to try B1G1 for 17 days without any kind of credit card payment. It's not free for 2 months. So after 17 days, if you want to use it, you will have to start paying. But they call it the B1G1 experience, and it's 17 days to reflect the 17 SDGs on the wall behind me. There's a different link for that one, and I'll give you the link for that one if you would prefer this. To say it's not as generous, and it's really only relevant if you can't afford to pay $38 today and get $38 back tomorrow. But if you can't, for that whatever reason, do that, then this might be the better option. I've called it alternative step 1. If you click on that link there, it will take you through to this page. And there's a little 2-minute video on this page in which Masami, who's one of the 2 co-founders of B1G1, explains in the 2-minute video that by following the link below, you'll be able to B1G1 will set you up with a B1G1 account and talk you through how to use it. There'll be a 20-minute discovery call meeting at which they give you your B1G1 account and show you how to use it. That'll be a live meeting with someone here in the UK, or if it's more convenient for you, down in the Southern Hemisphere time zones, and there'll be no cost. At the end of 17 days, you can play with it for 17 days without ever putting in your credit card, and then you can decide whether you want to continue after the 17 days. But if you do, from day 18 onwards, it's going to cost you $1 a day. So this isn't as generous as the first option, because I'm not picking up the cost for 2 months, but it does allow you to get started with no credit card at all, as it were. So you click on the link, and all you need to do here is click on one of these discovery meetings. You can hopefully see my screen, go through to the diary. There aren't any slots this week, but next week you can see there are slots with the wonderful Jack on Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday. So for example, you could have a meeting with Jack at 1:30 or in the morning, or 1:30, sorry, 11:30 in the morning, 1:30 in the afternoon with Jack, and he will get you set up. He'll deliver the account to you. He'll show you exactly how to use it. It'll be yours. You'll be up and running on the 12th of July. So those are the two options if you really want to take action with this stuff. After you've one or other, whichever of those two options you've gone down, I would suggest the first one, because it allows me to fund it for you for the first 2 months. There's no cost for 2 months. But if the second less generous option floats your boat more, then go that route. If you don't want to do either of those two things, then I guess this just isn't the right thing for you at all. My hope is you will want to tap into some of this. My hope is you will want to do something about the SDGs. You will want to tap into that purpose premium, and this is the easiest way that I know of doing that. And through those two options, also the lowest cost by far. But if you don't do that now, the reality is you never will. It may be an interesting session, Chris, but if you don't do something with it, you never will. So my email address again is steve@stevepipe.com if you need to reach out to me and get any further clarification. It is my birthday. I am going out this evening. I am out all day tomorrow, but I will reimburse you before I go out tomorrow. We are away next week, actually celebrating my wife's 60th birthday. So we need to act quickly on this if we're going to act on it at all. It has been my great pleasure being able to share this stuff with you. Once you've sent me your email address in response to one of those two things, I'll then be able to send you the various books and so on that I promised. But if none of that matters to you and you're doing great stuff already, thank you so much for what you're doing. Thanks for caring. Thanks for being here. I don't think anybody has actually followed through and done anything yet, which is kind of disappointing. But maybe that's just the way that it is for this group. I'm keen to get some feedback. Really interesting session. Chris described it. But Chris, Benji, Sydney, if you all said that you were allowing me to get passionate, and I guess you're still here because you said that you wanted to do something with this stuff. So what are you going to do? I mean, if not this, if not one of my two options, what are you going to do? It would be my challenge to you, because it's fine coming on a session, just like reading a book, taking notes, going to a meeting. Unless you do something with that stuff, nothing changes, nothing happens, nothing gets better. You certainly don't become one of these coffee shops that sells 19 cups of coffee instead of 0 cups of coffee by sitting and making nothing happen. You have to do something. And if I promise you, I had these kind of conversations with so many people so many times. If you don't do it now, in the next 5 minutes, now before 6 o'clock, you won't do it ever. You kid yourself, you will. You just won't do it ever. That's the reality.
Can I speak?
Yeah.
I'm with the JGB team, and it's down to the principal in terms of taking that sort of decision.
Yeah, and you guys are already B1G1 members, so there's no decision for you guys to take. All you need to take is, I would suggest that you get together and say how are we going to use this further? How are we going to make the most of the membership that we already have?
Absolutely. So that would be up to the principals.
Yeah.
Then we'll be able to go from there. So
yeah.
But thank you very much.
Great pleasure. Well, unless there are any other questions, or unless I see anything coming up in the chat box, I was hoping that at least one person would step up and take some action today. But so the first person, I would love to give them a huge round of applause. I'll get a notification from B1G, and if you use the first of those links, the reason I was I know that no one's done that yet is because they send me an email. When you use the code RISE, remember that means they know that it's me that's urged you to do this, and they send me a notification saying, congratulations, you know, Nat or whoever has just jumped on board. So it will be awesome to get one of those, but I fully understand if this isn't right for you, and I'm very grateful for your time today. I hope that however you do it, you go and make our world a better place. I think this is the easiest way of doing that, but it may not be your way.
Brilliant. I think, yeah. Should we wrap things up then?
Yeah,
Steve?
happy to do that. Happy to do that.
So I think yes, quite sort of things I know I've got. Yeah, we need to perhaps have a word with Anthony. Some of us for there. I just want to get my head around, well, how am I going to make it work? Sounds brilliant. I have heard Paul Dunn.
Yeah.
5 years ago, giving away goats. He was talking about.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And he was a phenomenal chap. So I recognise the name when you showed him.
Paul is one of the two co-founders, and in fact co-wrote the book Rise with me. You might not be able to see, but it says Steve Pipe and Paul Dunn there. We co-wrote the book together.
Yeah, Paul Dunn reference. So thanks. Yeah, thanks for reminding me of that. Really. So brilliant. I'm sure we will be doing something. I'm sure we will. We'll just need to mobilise our troops, if you like, at our end. Yeah. And then hopefully we'll take action and dig a little bit deeper and go from there. It's a super session. So I'm going to stop the recording now.
Brilliant.
Which I can. So stop recording and I'll share that.